Hello, everyone! Welcome back to another wonderful evening of the Book Wyrm Club. Tonight, I am your host, Alex, on my channel, Frank Fiction, and here is my lovely co-host, Kat.
Hello, everyone.
For those who might not know you, Kat, would you like to do just a brief little introduction?
Well, I'm Kat of Kat's Novel Adventures, and I guess I would consider myself an eclectic reader. I like to read a lot of different things, not just one genre, and I like to have adventure. That's me.
You sure do. And I love that about you. And talking about eclectic reading, I feel like this year, because this is our last book club of the year, and we're going to be heading into 2026, I think we did an excellent job with having a huge variety of books, and we're still going to
Yes.
have a huge variety of books next year because every single one is a different genre, which I'm really looking forward to. So for those of you, this is our plug for 2026 who haven't gone to watch both of our videos about which books we pick for next year, please definitely go check those out because
Hmm.
we'll in 2026 as well. And Kat, tonight, would you want to hold up our book? What did we read tonight? A Man Called
A
Ove.
Man Called Ove.
Yes.
Ove.
Yeah, apparently the audiobook narrator was saying Uve, which is incorrect. It is Uva. I don't know how they got
Ove.
away with that. But this was my first Fredrik Backman, and I was really excited to read this because I've been wanting to read him for a while because he's so well regarded. And he actually just had a good or Goodreads award pick for fiction. I think he was like a winner
Oh.
of the Goodreads Choice Awards for like one of his most recent books. So I guess depending on how this discussion goes is going to determine whether either of us wants to read another one after this.
Well, did you also know that this is his debut novel?
I did not. Is it really?
Yes, this is
Oh, well,
his debut novel back in
wow.
2012.
Good for him. Because, I
Yeah.
mean, this got turned into the movie A Man Called Otto with Tom Hanks. I have not seen that. I probably
And
won't.
there is also a foreign movie, A Man Called Uva,
Oh,
as well.
is okay. Wow. He got two movies
He's
for
got
his
two.
debut.
He's got, yeah.
Wow.
But I wonder if that's just something that happens with like, Swedish or Scandinavian, because the girl with the dragon
I was
tattoo
going to say
had the
that. Yeah.
foreign film, and then
Yes.
they ended up having an American of just the first one. And I think there was one for the spider web, which was not in the original trilogy.
No, and that was a
That,
different actress, and I don't think
yeah.
it did very well.
Yeah, I definitely, this has nothing to do with Uva, but I think that Naomi Rapace, that played the actress for the Dragon Tattoo, the foreign film, was an excellent version.
I have only seen of the foreign films for that the first movie. I should probably
Oh,
watch or the first. Was it a movie or TV series? But I only saw
it
the
was
first.
movies. It was
Okay,
movies.
okay, I should go back and watch those. I promise, as always, that I will do the description of A Man Called Uva. A Man Called Uva is a book about a man called Uva. Okay, thanks. Moving on. I was like, this is going to be such a corny joke. I'm going to do it anyway. No, seriously, A Man Called Uva. It is about a man called Uva, but he is actually pretty young. I figured that he was going to be like this older gentleman, like in his 70s. He's only 59 years old. He was recently forced into retirement and he's lost his wife 6 months ago. And he is the most cranky, crotchety, old person, old because he's not old, but like he acts old person ever. And he's a very interesting character because he has lost the will to live. And so the book is about him trying to basically find different ways to end his existence and the things that keep getting in the way of that.
And that is a question that we were going to talk about, because I felt like I was having deja vu with Uva
Okay.
from the synopsis
Ah.
of Remarkably Bright Creatures,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
where
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
are not getting what you expected.
Yeah. I
Um,
will say I was pretty shocked in like so it wasn't until I think around chapter 4 or 5 that I started really understanding what this book was gonna be. And so yeah, we're gonna have It's going to be a time us talking about this one. I just know because Kat, usually I'm the one that sends cryptic messages when I'm being kind of like vague about how I feel. It was Kat this time. And I was like, oh yeah, this is going to be good. So for everybody that is in the comments, and I will go over and say hello to everyone, please put a red heart if you read the book, a black heart if you didn't read it, and a skull if you DNF'd it. And
yeah, we have a lot of great people in the chat
yes,
tonight.
very happy to see everyone. So Talkana's here. Hi, Talkana. She says, won't be able to join today, but look forward to the replay. Y'all have fun and happy holidays. Thank you to you as well. And poor Rob's got a migraine. So
Oh
he says, don't be
no.
lurking. I'm so sorry. Grab a drink, grab a snack. Yes, if you haven't grabbed a drink and grabbed a snack, do that. I made my advent calendar tea, which
Can I
is
make
in
hearts?
flavor. Yes, and hearts.
I
And
was
the
trying to
flavor.
see if I can make hearts. Why I can't make
So
hearts on your StreamYard? Maybe
mine
because I'm
stopped working. It just like I can't do anything on mine. And I wonder if it's like a setting on my computer. I'm not
I
sure.
don't know. I was trying to send you some hearts,
Oh, thank you.
Robert.
Yeah, poor Rob. And Heidi's here. Hi, Heidi. Heidi says, I'm here for the non spoiler. I read like 3 pages and DNF'd. Litfic is no longer for me. That's okay. That's why we do the variety of genres. You never know. Like, next thing could be interesting. Rob says, 5 stars. Carry on. Awesome. I love hearing that. That's awesome. Let's see. And Halko, hello. Good to see
Hey,
you.
Halko. Woohoo.
Hi, peeps. I didn't read the book, but I'm here to listen in on the discussion. Well, thank you for.
Yay. Thanks for the support, Halko. Appreciate that.
Heidi says, instead of Kate and Allie, is Kat and Alex. What's that a reference to? You know, Kat? What's that a
Mm-mm.
reference to? Heidi, you'll have to tell us. And Carmen's here. Hi, Carmen. Carmen says, hi, Alex and Kat. I finished reading the book today. Good job.
She started yesterday.
Oh my God. Okay, you chugged that. You hopefully it was worth it for you. And Zach's here. Hi, Zach. Zach says, I'm getting it 3.5 stars, but I hate Uva. And Halko doing that. Yeah,
Halko's
the
laughing.
chuckle. Heidi says, oh, looks like I made a great decision not reading this upbeat, happy book. Yeah, it's not, I wouldn't describe it
Yeah,
as upbeat. No. Halko didn't read, but Angela's here. Angela read it. Carmen read it. Zach read it. Heidi DNF'd. And I know we've had issues with some of the hearts don't show up as read. I know Rob read it. And
Rob
Mindy's
just
here. Hi,
yeah.
Mindy. Mindy read
And
it.
yeah, Mindy gave 4 stars, but it's showing black on our end, but it's really
Yeah,
red. So I think it depends on what device you're on.
probably. Yeah. And Zach
And
says I
then
started
Zach said he started yesterday too.
Dang, you all. Good job. So, yes, if you haven't already, please tell us your rating. And just so we always state for anybody who might be watching this who's never watched us before, after we get through the rating, that is the end of the spoiler free. That's after we head into the discussion. It's a very short period of time that it is spoiler free. So, Kat, as my lovely guest, I want to hear the reaming that you're about to give this book. What is your
I'm
rating?
not going to ream, but I will say I did give it a 3.5.
It's
But
actually better than I was expecting you to
I'm
say.
tipping towards 4 on Goodreads. So, you know how you have to round, there are no half stars on Goodreads. So it is a 3.5 officially, but when you look at my review, it will say 4 stars. The
Okay.
3.5 will be in the description.
Okay. Awesome.
How about you?
I gave it 4.5.
Ooh.
Yeah, I gave it 4.5 stars. The funny thing was, because Kat and I talked about before the discussion, because this is our first year where it's been one whole year of reading, because last year it was only a half year. So we've done this 1.5 years, right? And so we're going to tell everybody at the end our
Yes.
ranking of what the books are that
Yeah.
and how we felt about them for the book club this year. And
I think
did
we should do season 1 too, even though there were 3 books. I think we should say what our rating rankings for that. I think you know what yours is. I know what mine is. Just out of the 3 books.
I probably could do that since it's only 3. Yeah, I think so. But the thing I realized, Kat, is not a single book that we had for our book club did I give 5 stars.
Really?
Not one. So I'm
Oh,
really hopeful for next year. Now, that's not to say I didn't like them. I gave
right. That's
plenty
true.
four
That's true.
stars and one 4.5, which is really good. I only had one that I didn't super care for, but I still didn't rank it really hard because I recognized the value that it had, even though I wasn't a fan of it, which is still fine. But
Right.
yeah, we'll talk about that at the end. But yeah, so mine was 4.5. Cat, you're leaning towards 3.5, kind of hovering.
Tipping to 4. Yeah,
Okay,
well, Goodreads is going to show 4, but
alrighty. And then, oh, hang on, sorry. Heidi said Kate and Ellie was a hit sitcom with Jane Curtin from the 80s. Two single moms and best friends raising
uh,
their kids together.
I
Oh, that.
vaguely remember that.
Zach says this is a heart test to see if it's red or black this way. It's a
It's
tiny
black.
little black heart. That looks even different than the other ones that have come through. Carmen
Mm-hmm.
gave it
Oh,
four and a
Carmen 4.5. Yeah, I
half.
knew
Angela gave it
Angela gave
five.
it
Look
5.
at
I knew
you.
that Angela did ahead of time.
Yeah, I love reading about the human condition. Not all great books are happy. That is so true. That is
That is
honestly,
true.
there have been plenty of really heartbreaking books that I have felt like were
Uh,
amazing. Pachinko,
Cujo,
5-star read, So,
Cujo, 5 stars. Will tear your heart right out your chest.
yep. Zach says, yay, me and Kat are on the same page. LOL, though I definitely round down to 3. Alrighty. So that's the end of the spoiler free section. So, Kat, my first question for you, let me get my comments all situated here. My first question for you, because it happened so early in the book that we found out, is were you surprised when you learned that Uva wanted to commit suicide? Because that is not in the description of the book. That is something you find out early. And how did that
Yes,
feel?
I was very surprised. I was very surprised because, like I said, the synopsis gives nothing like that. You just think he's a grumpy old man. He's going to get new neighbors. They're going to drive him even more crazy. And then they're going to, hopefully, they're going to change his life kind of thing.
Yep.
So I had no idea. So I was very surprised. And then I'm like, oh, is this going to be like a bummer? The whole read. I was like, please
Yeah.
no.
So how I ended up learning about A Man Called Ove was there was a YouTuber, and I watched this video years ago. There was a YouTuber who she made a video about how she was going to read books that people said made them cry.
Mm,
And so she read some that were like absolutely devastating, right? Like sad, like really tragic sad. And then other ones were like, I assumed were happy sad based off the way she described them. And the way that she talked about this book is she said, you should read this. And it did make her cry. And I was like, oh, well, that's probably like a hits you right in the good feels somewhere, in your heart kind of story. And so I was really interested in reading this because I love a book that can make me cry, and not all of them can. So it's like when one can, it makes me feel good. But I had the similar reaction to you in the beginning when I realized, oh, he wants to end his life, that this is going to be a hard book about like his relationship with his wife and how he became this way and why he now feels like life isn't worth living without her. And
mm-hmm.
it did touch me though. Like texted Kat when this happened because I started reading this before her. I was at page, what was it?
46.
46. Thank
46.
you. You mentioned,
Because
yeah,
I even
46.
said, I said, this isn't
Yeah.
going to happen like in the first 5 pages. And she's like,
Yeah.
oh no, it's page
Yeah.
46. So when I get to it, I'm like I
Yeah.
did not cry a tear
Yeah.
in this
Not through the
entire
whole book,
book.
Kat said. And I did. I 100%
Which is
did.
so weird because I am pretty emotional, but I think part of the reason I didn't is because of Uva. I did not really like Uva.
No, that's
I
fair.
hate to say that.
He's an asshole.
I
No,
did
he is.
not like him. I mean, there were times where, and I had compassion for him.
Yeah.
And I felt badly for him, but I also felt like the reason he had some of his issues was because of his personality.
Yeah.
Now, I do know and realize that, and we'll get into it because of some of our questions. You know, his life wasn't peachy, but he made a choice. So
Mhm.
that's what it boils down to, also. And then I'll explain a little more why. But I think it was hard. It's like I can have compassion and sympathy for him and feel badly for him, because he did have it tough, but
Yeah.
at the same time, his reaction to things that happens to him in his life, it's like, okay, you are not the only person that has had a rough time. You know what I'm saying? So,
We'll talk about that. Yeah, we'll definitely get into that because there's a lot that I feel like made Uwe the man that he is. And one of the things that this actually leads into my next question, Rob. Can't anyone make rope anymore? Referring to the first attempt that Uwe had in trying to kill himself, which was also the only one in the book that was not interrupted. That's the point. That's one of the things I wanted to note as well, that he tried or thought about doing many different things. That one was the only one that wasn't interrupted by something, but it still didn't work because something went wrong.
mhm.
And it was kind of like, I remember when it was describing like it going around his neck, I was like, oh my god, are his neighbors gonna run over and they're gonna like save him and that's gonna like start their relationship? It's like, no, literally the rope just broke. And he got mad because it's like, can't anybody make rope anymore? It's like, oh my god. Um, oh yeah, Zach so is talking about the Mercies. So that's also another book that Rob as well has
The
recommended.
Dance Tree is also by Karen Millwood Hargrave, and that one is very sad, and I shed tears for that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree with Zachary says he makes the most of his own problems. I do think he
Yo,
just
yo.
he does try.
It was Alicia Yo.
Alicia, yo, what's up? I didn't couldn't tell that was a yo-yo until you said that. I was
Yeah.
like, that makes sense. Yes. Zach says worrying about the hook and not bothering to get a decent rope is a perfect encapsulation of why I can't stand him. He worries about the rigid things and fails with the flexible things.
Well,
Oh,
that's one of the questions we kind of talk about with the
yeah.
limitations.
That's a good metaphor. Yeah, just
Yes.
I wasn't expecting him to go the route of ending his life, but my brother's story is almost identical, except he succeeded. That's when I
Mhm.
became part of the book itself.
And so I can see like Angela having, a lot of emotional with that, because she has experience with
Yeah,
it.
100%.
And I do think I happened to hop on Blake's Sprints earlier today just for a few minutes, and they were talking about like books and being in the right season for them. And I do think that your season of life does impact your reading life.
Yeah.
If you're in a
Mhm.
good place, bad place, if you haven't had the experience that other people have had, that kind of stuff. And I do think to myself, like my dad lost his wife, and they were married for over 50 years, and he had to care for her a whole, year or so, with dementia. It was very tough, but it's not like my dad's wanting to check out. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it's sort of like, but I can understand it because our neighbor, he's in his 50s, and he lost his wife right around the time I lost my friend Shelley. And I'm telling you, he turned into a jerk, like just could not handle. And we're like, look, and I was like, look, I'm not here for abuse.
Right.
You know where to find us if you need help or whatever. And it took him a good year to, like, I mean, he's changed, but you can see that his old self back. He's not being that jerk anymore or whatever. So I can see both sides of it. A lot of it, I guess, has to do with your personality.
Yeah. Kat, do you feel it was appropriate for the author to handle like this? It's a delicate subject to talk about suicide. And I don't think I have ever read a book that handled it in such a nonchalant, like kind of hand wavy, almost comedic fashion.
Yeah,
That was the one
I
part about it. I was like, that feels a little insensitive.
Yeah, well, that's what I was thinking. I said I personally didn't like it because I kind of felt like, I mean, it would have been one thing if he wasn't taking himself seriously about it, but I thought, oh my goodness, this could be very inappropriate and problematic for some readers, especially if they've either thought about suicide themselves or if they know someone that, has committed suicide or tried, whether they succeeded or not. I'm just thinking,
I
I
do
don't
want
know.
to I do want to speak on the flip side of that though, that perhaps it had more to do with if you can speak about this really dark thing that people don't like to talk about because it is
Hmm.
very grim, and you can inject the humanity into it. You can show why somebody would make the choice that they're making, about like the ways in which they're thinking about going about it and how they got to that point. Maybe for some people that would actually be healing for them, and
Hmm.
maybe give them hope that like that's not the end all be all, which is really what I wanted from this book when I realized that that was Uva's intention, is he was like ideating this idea of like, oh, I want to take my own life because I want to see my wife again.
Hmm.
That maybe somebody would read this and see that it's not it's not something to be glorified, because some people do
Right.
glorify it.
Right.
And I don't know, that's, I think, while I did feel kind of weird about it, maybe it was, I still think it could have had a good impact on some people.
Well, I also think in Uva's situation, Uva felt very alone. I mean, Uva felt like he had no one, not a person. So,
Yeah.
what difference did it make to anyone else what he did, whether he was going to continue living or he was going to, join his wife? Like, he had no, like he did not feel like he was part of a community. He
No.
did not, like, even though he did things to like benefit the community, he never felt like he was a part of the community, that he was one with anyone. And so for him, on his personal journey, I mean, we're seeing it from his point of view and what he's thinking and all that. And so I can see it, but at the same time, I'm just like, ooh, this is pretty heavy. Just wasn't expecting it to be like a heavy topic. I don't know why. I guess because seeing like the trailer for the movies and all that kind of stuff, and then
Yeah, I
reading the
haven't seen the
synopsis,
trailer.
it just seemed like it was going to be like grumpy old men, like with Walter
Oh,
Matthau, and
yeah, I just
you
watched
know what I'm
that. I love that
saying?
movie. Yeah, I I agree. I kind of figured it was going to be maybe like a curmudgeon, just like has a
Hmm.
found family, which is kind of interesting about this book because he didn't it didn't seem until like very late in the book that you really get the sense that any of them are actually connected. It took a really long time to show, like, so like Parvana, for example, which who is the main person that he kind of ends up connecting with in this book, because she is just so unbelievably stubborn and in your face about things, and was also the only character who was noticing that he was acting kind of oddly. Like,
Hmm.
it seemed like everybody else was just, they had no clue. And that was led into another question, which is, do you believe Parvana knew Uvo was suicidal or just suspected something was wrong?
Initially, I don't think she realized that he was suicidal. I don't think it was until the garage incident. Once the garage incident happened, that's when she kind of jumped in gear. I think she
Yeah.
probably got vibes that he was an old man. He recently had lost his wife.
He's only
He's
59. He's
he's
not even old.
grumpy. Right, he's grumpy, whatever, you know. But when the garage incident happened, I think she took it upon herself, like to insert herself in his life and
Yeah.
make sure we're not going to give you the opportunity. And also, it just made it to where even the community got kind of involved in a roundabout way.
But yeah, I would say roundabout, because they didn't know that. I think she was the only one who got an inkling about it, and I do think she had an understanding because she forced the cat on him. That was the
Yes.
moment when I was like, okay, because she really wasn't letting on anything that whole time, other than kind of like looking in the garage and being like, that seems kind of weird. When she made up the excuse that like, oh, my kids are allergic, you have to take the cat, and you're like,
Well, and
okay,
also the driving lessons. I want to learn how to drive,
yeah,
and you're going to teach me how to
that's true.
drive.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah, Rob says everything Uva did was with a specific purpose. I would agree with that. Angela says we all process things like death differently. I find therapy in some of these stories I read. Absolutely.
Hmm.
Absolutely. Zach says lots of stuff handles Chop Suey the same way, like the whole montage in Deadpool 2. It happens quite a bit with characters in fantasy worlds that can't die but try over and over.
Mm.
And Alicia says, I was fully expecting the cat to die. Yeah, I didn't think that the cat would die because the cat's on the cover of the book, and I'm like, no, he's got to make friends with this cat. But I did, okay, I didn't like that Uva was an asshole to people. Okay, I want to be clear about that. It's not great the way that he treated people, but when he
Yes.
leave that cat outside, that was the one moment in the book I was like, I want to hit you, you absolute asshole. And I was really glad that Parvana stepped in and is like, we're gonna help this cat. And
I
Uva,
love the cat. The cat was my favorite.
yeah, yeah, cat was really cute. Yeah, and Mindy says, "Yeah, I think she found out at the garage incident." Yeah, and
Hmm.
Chris is here. Hi, Chris. Chris says, "I think other countries don't have the same attitude towards suicide that we do."
Hmm. That is true. That is
Yeah,
true.
yeah. Alicia says, "I definitely pictured Uva as 80 and not
I
59."
know.
100% because he acts so old, but he's
Yes.
not. It's because he's so curmudgeon-y. Angel says one of his best friends lived nearby, but they'd fallen out. Was it over their cars? Uva was stubborn. That's a fact. Okay,
Yeah.
so I do just, this isn't related to the question, but I do want to mention that part of the book where there's this whole through line with him and his neighbor about why did they have this falling out? They seemed like they kind of liked each other, and people thought, oh, it was because of it was like their version of an HOA, right? The association.
Hmm.
One of them was vying for power over the other. Uva claimed it was because his neighbor took over. And then his wife was saying, no, it's because one day their neighbor bought a BMW and Uva just couldn't handle it. One of my favorite parts in the book was from Uva's perspective when he finally gets to talk about how the falling out happened, and you read like how their lives are kind of coinciding with one another, that it's like, okay, so they're both expecting to have a child, they're both like changing their
Hmm.
cars based on that, and it's kind of following along how they have this without talking, this heartfelt moment when Uva leaves a bottle of whiskey at his neighbor's house and is like, hey, I'm sorry you can't have another child, without ever saying anything. It's just like an understanding. And for Uva, when his neighbor got the BMW, it was because Uva viewed that as, well, you gave up. You gave up on like giving your wife what you wanted, on like your dream of like having a good relationship with your
Hmm.
kids. And that's really psychologically what was going on with him, that he never expressed in any way,
Hmm.
but it seemed like him and his neighbor had an understanding. Is it Rube? What Rube?
Rune.
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 I'm sorry. I was like, it's not Rube. Yeah, Rune. Um, and I liked that. I liked that Uva and Rune were almost identical people, but
Hmm.
the way that like life happened with them
Right.
very
So they
different.
were like mirror images.
Yes.
What
Yes.
with opposites. Like you
Yes.
got to see the opposite of how it
Yes.
would be if you were optimistic and how would
Mhm.
you be if you were bitter.
Yes. 100%.
Now
And
I like that scene where they helped the neighbor who was being abused by her husband, her drunken husband, and how they came together for that.
yeah.
Um,
Oh, I love that, saving little boy Jimmy, and you realize how Jimmy's been there the whole time. That was the other
right.
thing I did like about the book, is you see this kind of through line of like how Uvo was connected with people, even if he treated people like crap and he
Mhm.
talked about them poorly. Like he was always so mean about Jimmy's weight. That was another thing where I was like, you're just being a dick. Like stop
I
being a dick.
know.
And then he'd be like, well, I mean, I don't care what other people do. I just don't understand how you could let yourself get that way. And it's like, oh my God, I hear shit like that all the time for
Well,
people who
that's what I
are in
think the
that
thing was with Uva is I cannot stand someone who acts like they're superior to people. Like, always pointing out, like, making people feel less than, making them feel like they're dumb or they're stupid. Like, I hated the part when he was with the little guy, Adrian, who couldn't fix the bike or whatever. And, he's like, how come you don't know how to do this? Your dad didn't show you how to do it. And then he finds out that Adrian's dad's in the slammer. Well,
Yep.
then it's like,
Yep.
he can't even apologize
No.
and say, I'm sorry that I said that. But
Yeah.
that's what I think is the problem with Uva is Uva doesn't think before he says stuff. Or like the whole thing with Mersad. I mean, he finds out that Mersad is gay, and then he's
Over the
he's
bender.
saying all I was so uncomfortable during that whole I was just like,
Yeah.
shut up, Uva. Shut
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
I
Just
was
kept
like,
calling him bent. It's like you.
yes. And I'm just like,
Yeah. I feel like the author did a really good job of showing that Uva, the way that he treats people is wrong. I mean, because he has a character like Parvana who comes in and is like, you're not supposed to say things like that, you know. So
Right.
it's not that Uva gets away with it and you're expected to believe that he's right. You're not. You're expected to view
Right.
him as being an asshole. But the point of the book is to show how he became that way. And there was a I'm going to butcher the quote, but there was something that I heard years ago where it was like all the toughest people were once soft before horrible things happened to them.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
know, it's like aren't born that way; they become that way
Right.
because of life. Um, and that leads into another question I would like to ask you. I'm not going in perfect order, so forgive me. But do you think it's easier to be bitter when life is cruel or to remain optimistic?
I mean, for myself personally, I think it's easier to be optimistic. Only saying that based on a lot of the things that I've been through, especially recently. But I can see the alternative. I can see how it's easy for some people to be bitter,
Yeah.
because they feel like, and in Uva's case, it's like one thing after another kind of thing. But I don't know. It's kind of a hard question because for me, I just think it's easier to be optimistic. It
Mhm.
doesn't mean that you can't be mad and sad and all that and go through your stages of grief,
Mhm.
anger, and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, I just think it's easier to be optimistic because that's the only way that you're going to ever get past it. I mean, I think if you stay bitter the whole time, you're going to miss out.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of surprised, I guess, for Uva that because I understand that the beginning of his life was hard. You know, he lost his mom. His dad was his most important person. They obviously were very poor, but his dad was a really hard worker and a good man. And Uva was very quiet. He liked math. He was doing well in school. Well, he was doing well in math. He didn't like the other subjects, but he loses his dad and he decides he wants to go into the workforce. He quits school,
Hmm.
right? And you would kind of think like maybe after the point he meets Sanja that because he talks about how the world had so much color, like she had all the color that he had, she was all the color he had, that he would view life as being happier. And I do think at a point, like when they're on that trip right before the accident happens, he talks about how that was the best week of his life. I feel like that was almost for him like a turning point and maybe viewing things as being like, hey, the good's coming, like we're
Hmm.
ready to have this child. I have a beautiful wife. Like we love each other. We're very happy. And every time he feels like he's getting settled, like when he was rebuilding the house, right? And then the house, he goes to save his neighbor's grandchildren. The house burns down. He finds out that he was screwed over by a fake insurance salesman. And it's like at
Hmm.
every turn that he has tried to be a good person and do the right thing and have what he calls, his strong principles and everything, somebody or something has happened to him that was terrible.
Hmm.
And
So he
so
makes that association, but
right. That's like you can't be happy because something's always going to go wrong. Like, and he said in the book that he was angry because it seemed like all of the worst things happened to the people who least deserved it. And he was talking about his wife. He wasn't talking about himself. He
right.
was talking about Sandra. And so I guess, everybody does process things differently. And one of the things that, Carmen was saying in here was, it reminds me that there are inner struggles and pain that I can't see. It explains the way people are. I need to give more grace, like Pravana did, the patience to understand or see. And it's like,
Hmm.
and we can
Hmm.
try. You can't, but that's the thing about when you read a book, and this is why books are so great, is you get so much empathy when you read a book because you learn to try to understand people. But like actually, like if you met somebody in public who started screaming at you in the face, the last thing you're probably going to do is say,
Right.
I wonder how this person's doing. I wonder why they turned out this way, right? So it's like we can do that because it's a novel. In real life, if somebody was treating us the way that Uva was, you'd be like, God, what a dick. Like, why is
Right.
this
Right.
person being
Right.
like that, right? And you'd be like, why are you so bitter? So it's hard, right? Because this is a
And I
fictional.
also think Pravana, I mean, for her, she's going to be Uva's neighbor for however long they're going to be living next to each other. So she's going to try whatever she can to kind of smooth things over and for them to get along because they are going to be neighbors. and they're very friendly people. And, so I don't know. He
Yeah.
just, I just don't have patience for people. Like I try, and I mean, even I mean, there's a curmudgeon guy at the Friends of the Library store, and the
What
first day I
makes
had to
you
deal with
about him?
him. The first day I had to deal with him, I said, maybe this is not the place for me to volunteer. Because I'm like, I'm giving my time, and I don't want to be around somebody who's negative and grouchy. I mean, I'm sorry. I'm an adult. I don't have to be stuck with people.
Yeah, no, it's true. You have a right to interact with who you want to interact with. And one of the
What was
things,
that one that Mindy said? It seems
oh,
like you can't
yep,
apologize other than through actions.
yeah,
Yeah.
his love language is definitely acts of kindness, not positive affirmations. Yeah, that's a good point that like even when
Hmm.
they were on that trip, right before Sandra had her accident, she would sleep during the day because she was heavily pregnant and very tired. And he would go around the community and he would just like help people with things and people like described him as a hero. And she was like, what do you like you've been a hero and you were just doing stuff this whole time and I didn't know anything about it because he didn't talk about it. That
Right.
was okay. So if I had to describe a thing that I like about Uva did the right thing without wanting anybody to recognize him for it.
Right.
He saved the man on the train. He helped the lady in the car while were they in Italy or Spain? I can't remember.
Spain.
Spain. Like he just did those things because he viewed them as being right. Like his house is getting ready to burn down. Obviously, he spent all this time building it, but he doesn't want his neighbor's grandchildren to die. And I like that he was kind of the I would describe him as a very salt of the earth person, in that phrase that we use here. I don't know how like common that term is around the world, but that's how we describe people who how would you say like salt of the earth are like people that they're very simple or old fashioned and they're
They're
just like
just, yeah,
good people.
hardworking. They
Yeah.
do things um out of a sense of integrity
Yes.
and
I do think those are
loyalty or
right.
whatever. It's, they want to do what's right,
Yes.
but
100%.
they're not expecting anything. They're just expecting that everybody else is going to do what's right as well. They don't need a title or a reward or anything like that.
Yeah. And Rob brings up another point about Uva and Rune is like they were people who relished the fight. They were people who didn't they not only didn't mind when somebody was angry at them, they loved it when somebody was mad because it like gave them like this passion and this drive and it was the first thing that they had ever come together on. And yeah, he's quoting the book where it was like both men were rather disappointed the council gave up so quickly. These last 18 months were the most enjoyable of their lives. And it's like, man, that is the opposite of a good time to me. That would be the most stressful thing in the whole world to me. It's just as
Yeah, and I just think for Uva, it's just sad that, I mean, he allowed, some of the pettiness between him and Rune, because, now it's like, yeah, he fights for Rune at the end, which I thought was great what he did to the guy, the white shirt guy. Um, but it's like all that lost time
Mhm.
because you can't say you're sorry. You know what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
the way he's got to try to fix that is like what Mindy was saying, with like acts of service and kindness or whatever. He's gonna try to fix it
Right.
so that, Rune can stay with Anita, and,
Yeah.
maybe they can patch up their time together, the
Yeah.
little bit they had.
Yeah. I agree. And Alicia says, I think Uva was indeed bitter, but also he just had the mindset of if you're not going to do it right, why bother to do it at all? Which I can relate to. Yeah. He was very begrudging about things, but when he decided to do it, man, he was gonna make sure it was done the best way it could
Very
be.
focused on it.
Very focused. Zach says, but the so-called acts of kindness have to be dragged out of him, converting it to dollars. He was whining about a 50-cent extra charge when he had 2 million in the bank. Well, the charge was like paying it to the city, right? That wasn't like
Right.
helping a
Yeah,
needy
well, he wanted to stick
person.
it to the man is what.
Yeah. Yeah. Like he very much had an issue with authority because authority never helped him. The council never helped him. The medical professionals never helped him. Like, those were people he actively was going to try to fight because they had hurt him or hurt people he
Mhm.
loved. I don't view, like, when he, saved the guy from the train, it's like, well, you could argue it had to be dragged out of him, but the man had to fall in front of the train for him to save him. Like, he could have choose to just let him get hit, right? So I don't think that he was a bad person in that regard. And I think that when they were talking about when they went on vacation, like, Uva just helped people around the community without being forced to. Like, he just saw things that needed to be fixed.
Right.
He found it
And
in
I
himself.
think Uva liked to, he had skills, and I think he liked being able to use his skills to fix things and to
Yeah.
do things.
Mhm.
I think he liked that mechanical aspect of working with his hands and, solving problems. I think he liked to solve things, but I also think it's because he liked to be in control. It was like a controlled thing for him.
Yes, I'm glad that you brought that up, because there was another question that I wanted to ask you. So, oop, hang on, sorry, one second. Doo, doo, doo.
That's Alex's music. Do,
Yeah.
do, do.
Do, 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 do. Yes. I think okay. What do you think drives Uva to manage his life in such a carefully measured and precise way? Do his routines limit his life? Um, that to me, sorry, this thing's on it. They added a timer to your like questions, and so they keep popping off because I didn't set them properly. So my bad.
Oh, okay.
I fixed it. Um, that was one of the things I thought about with regards to this question is Uva does need control of his life
Hmm.
because everything that he has never had control of has caused something really horrible to happen. And so,
Yes.
kind of like, you become a control freak because if there's something you can fix and you can prevent from happening and you can keep it from going sideways, you're going to do everything you can. You're going to fight as hard as you possibly can,
Right.
make sure that that thing happens, because it's like when, and you kind of see that at the end when Uva realizes that Rune is going to be taken away right now. He didn't realize that Hanita had been fighting for 2 years. He thinks like, oh, there's more time. There's always more.
Hmm. Hmm.
And suddenly when that, like, he feels the world closing in around him because he's like, oh, I don't have, I this is happening so fast. I thought I could help. I had more time. And he jumps in and he's going to try to, like, do whatever he can in that situation and control whatever he can in the situation to make those people's lives hard so that they can't take.
Right. I thought that whole thing where they boxed in the car and all that was
Yeah.
hilarious, honestly. And that's what I put the need to have control driven by trauma and loss. I think
Mhm.
having the trauma and the loss at an early age, and then it's just one loss after another, things that took away, like you said, his control, like he had no control over it.
Yep.
I just think his routines, created comfort, connection, and control. And it's limiting to others. Others may view it as being limiting, but it was not to Uva. To Uva, it was a comfortable, he was in his comfort zone
Yeah.
because those are the things that he could control to do. Now, I would say that it would limit him with making connections with other people because, he's limiting that. But
Hmm.
hello, Paula.
Hello, Paula. Rob says salt of the earth, wooden ships, and iron men. Yeah. Zach says, I gave another $1,500 to a mystery person this week. They never asked for help. I just did it.
Mm, very good.
Zach says, if he ever really cared, he would have been helping the whole time. He didn't want to help. He wanted to fight the system for moronic reasons. I think the reason he wanted to fight the system was for Sanja. I mean, he had to fight for her to be able to teach at the school, to, help with, like, her medical issues. Like, they tried to prevent her from teaching. They tried to, like, they, at one point, they
Hmm.
wanted to take her away from him and, like, put her in a home because it's like, oh, well, you can't possibly want to, like, take care of this woman, right? And
They acted like she didn't have a brain,
yeah,
like her
because,
brain
well,
was paralyzed.
that's the way they treat. I mean, well, I mean, I would argue today that's how disabled people are treated, but it was even worse then.
Hmm.
because like for them they're like, oh well, you can't have kids and you can't walk, you've lost all your value. And Uva obviously didn't view it that way because
Right.
he loved her. And so I mean, were there certain things like with their homeowners association place that he fought that were dumb? Sure. Absolutely.
Hmm.
I don't think that everything that he fought for made sense, but I think that there were certain things like with his wife that made a lot of sense.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I
And those
agree.
those were completely justified.
I agree, but that's how people advocate, and that's why we have organizations for people. If it wasn't for somebody taking a stand and trying to fix something to make things better, we wouldn't have it, right? I
Yeah.
mean, like it just bothered me that even the school itself couldn't do something to like create a ramp
Build a
for
ramp.
her
Yeah.
because she
Yeah.
was a good teacher. Like she had value for the school. So
Mhm.
like I was even surprised like the school didn't step up in that regard. Um
Yeah, and Uva,
so
Uva built it himself, and it's like, hey,
right.
that's a commendable thing. And I think the other part about this book that was good is, I think this is an excellent demonstration that people are not necessarily black and white. Like
Mhm.
there's good and bad to everybody for the way that you handle a situation, for the way that you treat people, for the things that you love, for the what you value. All of that culminates into a person. And whether you agree with everything they do or not, or whether you like everything that they say or not, that doesn't, like, those people can still do good.
Well, that's kind of how we feel about Roland
Yeah.
from The
Oh,
Gunslinger.
yeah.
I mean,
100%. I
flawed,
Roland's,
and he can be
yeah,
an asshole just like Uva can,
100%.
but he knows when he needs to do the right thing, and he does it out of responsibility and loyalty.
We hope. We hope. Yeah. And Rob says 2 million kroner. Was it kroner or krona?
Krona?
Yeah, yeah, it's only $215,000. Yeah, I wondered that as well. Like if 2 million meant he was very wealthy. I didn't actually look it up, but if it meant he was really wealthy or if it was like a smaller sum, I wasn't
Hmm.
sure. Definitely not $2 million. He was not a millionaire.
Right. No, not a millionaire.
And Angela says he was almost regimental, like my dad. He took life very seriously. Yes, he was very regimented. 100.
I think he did that because he lost his mom so young. And then it was like he and his dad. I just think from that kind of shaped him to be that way. Like he had to grow up and be a mini adult a lot sooner than most kids his age would have had to do adulting.
Mhm. And Zach says, I was talking about, talking about with Rune, he would have helped more if he actually cared. He only wanted to fight the system. If he cared, it wouldn't have gotten there in the first place. I,
I can kind of see that point a little bit
yeah,
because if he really cared about Rune, he would have known that Anita had been fighting. But he let pride get in his way on that. And then he
100%.
also knew that Rune was having cognitive issues,
Right.
so he wouldn't have even had to be with Rune to be like worried about them having a fight over, the cars or whatever the case may be. He could have checked in with Anita. There was nothing stopping him ever from checking in with Anita. He didn't have beef with Anita.
Yeah.
He had beef with Rune.
Well, and that is addressed. That is addressed in the book, though, because Anita had told Jimmy that, well, I don't want to tell Sanja about my battle because they have enough going on their own, and that sent Uva like
Well,
over
yeah.
the edge because
Well,
he felt like had he been told, because Sanja didn't know, because Uva says, well, Sanja would have told me if they had been fighting, and I feel like for him that was like, well, I would have stepped in then if I had known that they were trying at that time, but they haven't been trying, so give it 2 years, I'll be long dead, it'll take forever, they'll be fine. And then he realized, like, oh my God, they've been doing this and didn't want to involve us because Sandra had cancer and they thought we had enough of
right.
our own issues. So they didn't want to bring us into it. And I think he had guilt about that. I really do. And I think that's why he stepped in.
Well, I also think, I mean, he had the guilt probably because had he never had the rift with Rune to begin with,
Yeah.
then he would have known and it wouldn't have made a difference.
Mm-hmm.
They could have supported each other. Bless you.
Thank you.
Um, Uva could have had support from Anita and Rune while he was going through everything with his wife, just like Uva and Sanja could have been helping Rune and Anita. Just because people are going through something doesn't mean that you can't still give support.
Right, 100%. And I think that was probably an issue with the way that they, because like, so Uvu mentions in the book that because of his riff with Rune, that Sanja and Anita couldn't be as close of friends as they wanted to be because they were like meant to be best friends, right? And so I do think that while Uvu couldn't admit that he was wrong and he couldn't admit that he ever did anything wrong, he still recognized the harm, and not in every instance, not in every
Right.
instance, but in some of the instances, he recognized the harm that he caused, and that's the inciting factor. And just says the name of the game is Tolerance and Grace. Rob says Uva had never been asked how he lived before he met her, but if anyone had asked him, he would have answered that he didn't. Yeah, he loves Sanja more than anything in the whole world.
Mm-hmm.
And that was another thing that I liked about him was if you could say whatever you want, and you could say whatever you wanted about him, and he wouldn't care. But he
But
cared.
don't say anything about his wife.
Yeah, he cared deeply about his wife. And there are certain aspects of that that I do respect and I do appreciate.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I think Carmen, I don't know if she's still on right now, but I marked it because we were talking about why he's so precise. She says, I wonder if Uwu was on the spectrum. Hope it's okay to say that. I honestly wondered that as well, but it was never addressed because he's not very he's not very in touch with his emotions. He doesn't like to express his emotions. He very much is more on like the logical and analytical side, but that doesn't mean
Mm-hmm.
that he doesn't feel deeply. It's the way that he expresses it doesn't necessarily come out properly.
Mm-hmm.
But that wasn't like it wasn't ever officially stated in the book, so I don't want to
Right.
assume that that was the intention with the character, but I did notice there were at least some similarities there. Did you think that at all while you were
I
reading?
wondered because it almost seemed like some of his tendencies were OCD.
Okay.
Like, just very, certain things had to be a certain way,
Mhm.
kind of thing. So, but I just didn't, I mean, I just kind of felt, and also just think maybe it always there or had it developed after the death of his mom and his dad, or was it more pronounced because that was a way he coped, or because he was older and was able to do those things? It's like sometimes you don't notice something
Yeah. And we'll never
until
know.
right,
Yeah,
because
we'll
he
never
didn't
know if
ever go
that was the
back.
intention, yeah, with his character, but I think it's fair to say that there are at least some similarities. Zach says Roland is rational generally. He doesn't have perfect ideals, but at least he makes sense. He does make sense, but he is also a bastard.
Yes.
Um, so like he's not. I wouldn't describe. And then we're only 2 books in. For everybody who doesn't know, we're reading the Dark
Right.
Tower series together. We're only 2 books into the whole series, but Kat and I are both like, man, what an asshole. Especially me. I'm like, poor Jake.
I know. It's like Jake.
Yeah. And I think in a similar vein, one of the questions you had brought up was why do you think Uva has such an ongoing battle with the modern world? And I think it's because he's losing a sense of the world that he knew and understood and
Hmm.
knew how to control. And suddenly there's like so much in it now that it's like you said earlier, he doesn't feel like he belongs anywhere.
Well, also too, I think to him, it's almost like another loss.
Hmm.
And he has a fear of not being able to adapt to that type of world.
Hmm.
So it's almost like the skills and the things that he has knowledge of, or he's not going to be as useful
Hmm.
because they now have technology. But I think that's another thing where he's alone and he doesn't have anybody to really um I don't know, support him in the sense of saying, Uva, they'll always need people who know how to make things or fix things mechanically or whatever. Like he doesn't have that support system until he meets his neighbors, until these people come into his life. Like I thought it was wonderful that Adrian and Mersad show up at his house, and Mersad stays with him like he's a hotel, and
Hmm.
so I do like the fact that there is connection. He ends up making connection, and he does end up seeing that he has some value.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so too. And one of the things I do want to make an amendment. Zach says I returned it to the library, but I'm pretty sure mine said he had 11.8 million Swedish kronar, which would have been about 2 million USD. And I did look it up, and Zach is correct. He had
Yeah.
11.5 kronar, and so he was a millionaire, and he was a Karen whining about 50 cents. I will say that he definitely could have paid for the things that he bitched about, but it also
I
says
think it was about him for principle. It
it,
was
it
the
was it,
principle of
it
it.
was, and the thing is too, he didn't live a lavish life. It's not like he wasn't greedy. I definitely would not describe Uwe as greedy. He was, a penny pincher. He's not going to give any more than he absolutely has to, but he had all this money in the bank that they never spent. And
Right.
he talks about how he inherited it from his father-in-law, because his father-in-law had, I think it was stocks or something. And he's
Hmm.
like, yeah, Sandra and I never knew what to do with it. And I liked it because he left it to Parvana, and Parvana made it, $2 million in a charity. So it ended up going to a good cause, even though he was a jerk about his money. It went to a good
Yeah.
cause in the end.
But I mean, I can kind of understand. Like, I mean, Uber does things on principle, and I mean, some of it is because he wants to be right, but I think that's because he wants to be fair. He's very fair-minded. And he doesn't like to be like ripped off, whether it's financially or just in general. I get that because there's sometimes it's not about what you get or whatever. It's the fact that if you agree to pay for something or do something and it's not delivered to you, but it could have been, then you have a right to be aggravated with that. I mean, it's like, especially if something is advertised
Mhm,
that they do. You know what I'm saying? Like if something is advertised that if you do XYZ, this is what you're going to get, and then you don't get it.
mhm.
It's like I can see the, griping like that. I mean, not necessarily I would be a Karen or act the way he does. I mean, for me to get angry with someone ever, it means that it has taken a lot. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like the
yeah.
patience and my
Mhm.
last nerve,
Yep.
they wore it down so thin that it doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, I no, I'm
Um,
the same way, and that is, I don't relate to Uwe in any way with his fast temper or screaming at people. He's also physically violent. That's a part of him that I do not like at all in this book, is like the number of people that he'll just hit you, and whether you argue it's justified or not in certain circumstances, it's like he very much is like, I'll find a way to resolve this, even if I have to put the fear of ass beating in you, right? So, like I said, he's not. It's not black and white. There are levels with him.
yeah, well, he's layered. I mean, it's
He's
not
like
like
an onion.
yes,
Yeah, very layered. And Zach
yes.
says he's a coward, too scared to change and too scared to let the world move on without him. So he tries to drag the rest of the world down with him.
Oh, Zach, that's harsh.
Zach obviously hates Uva.
Yeah, I
Um,
don't hate Uva. He's not my cup of tea. I mean, I don't know.
yeah,
I mean,
Rob.
there were some times I liked him, and sometimes I'm just like, "Ugh, enough already."
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. Rob
leave your
says,
grouchiness
I
at the
know.
door.
It's like, can you tone it down like one level? Yeah. And Rob says, have a good
I mean,
day.
even when he does something nice, he's still got to be curmudgeon-y about it. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
No,
interrupt.
no, you're okay. Yeah, it's the quote of Uva saying like, "We'll see," to the guy who's like, "Have a good day," right? It's like Uva, he was skeptical about everything. He's skeptical that anything can go well at all. Um, and so I got only have four more questions, Kat. So
What?
we're
What?
moving, yeah, only four more questions. We're moving right along. Um, Do you think Uva changes over the course of the book, or did your opinion of him change based on what you learned about his past? I'll let you answer this one first.
Um, Let me see where that was at because I wrote down. I kind of was like, what question was that? Um, that was one of mine. Okay, hello. Um, I said somewhat. I thought he changed. And the reason I say that is it's like he's always grumpy. Like he's always got that grumpy feeling to him. So like the grumpiness never goes away. But
Yes.
I think he does change in the sense that he sees that he has a purpose. I think he had lost his purpose when his wife died. There was no purpose for him to live anymore because the person that he loved the most in all the world, like, it's one of those things like three strikes, you're out kind of thing. He lost his mom, he lost his dad, he lost his house, he lost his job.
Mhm.
And now he gets the one thing that he thinks he's going to have forever, and they're going to have their child and they lose their child, but he still had her. And so that was just like the last straw. It was like, what was his purpose at that point? And
Mhm.
I think he does change because he finds his purpose again. He finds that there are people who truly care for him, even though he's got this tough exterior, that if you can unpeel his layers enough, you can see
Mhm.
those parts of it. Because even though he didn't want to do some of the things, he still did it. Like it cracked me up. Yes, he's going to bring the people to the hospital, but they have to sit on newspaper because he's worried about
Oh,
his
yeah,
his seat.
Angela said that. She's like, the paper
Right.
we put down on the car seats.
And I
Yeah.
love how like they would just move it out the way, whatever, and then the next thing you know, the cat's journeying with him in his car, so but it's just I just find that once he lost his purpose,
Yeah.
that's it. That's where the bitterness took root, and it took his neighbors and it took his community to unpeel that and kind of like get to the root of it and like kind of dig that out of him. But
Mhm.
he never lost his grumpiness exterior part.
Yeah.
It was just a little more, I think, tolerable the more you got to know him, kind of thing. It's
Yeah.
sort of like me with the Friends of the Library dude. Like the
Yeah.
first time he cracked a joke, I'm like, ooh,
You're like, oh, a
he's got
person's under
jokes.
there.
He's got
Yeah.
jokes.
Yeah.
So then I'm kind of like, observe him and stuff and think, well, maybe he's got something rough is going on with him or whatever.
Mhm. Yeah, Zach says he never grew up. I was my school's anti-bullying program with a hair trigger and violence. I could get away with that as a kid, but you can't when you're an adult. And Chris says, I've noticed that in a lot of Swedish books, there's a lot of violence to solve
Yes.
problems. They also seem to have a domestic violence problem.
Yeah,
So
well,
that
if you
truly
read
has
The
to
Girl
do.
with the Dragon
Yeah,
Tattoo, there's a big
100%.
problem when it comes to the treatment of women,
Oh, yeah.
especially if you're on the margins of society. I'm
Right.
just saying,
Yeah,
there's
hundreds
a
of
lot of violence in those books for
yeah.
sure.
And I guess from a cultural standpoint, I guess we have to keep in mind that this is a Swedish book. I'm not saying that that's right or wrong. It's just I don't know if Fredrik Backman is writing from like a perspective of what he sees people behave like
Right,
in public, like if there are men who act like that in Sweden? I have no idea. Or if Uva's just a character he came up with in his head, I don't know.
right.
Rob says Uva cared about people, but his patience ran out quick because he had an ironclad standard that everyone should adhere to, and nobody
Yes.
could. The only person to him, and she wasn't even perfect because he still bitched about her in certain ways, but like
Yeah,
still
because
loved
she had to
her.
go take a nap.
Yeah, it was Sanja. It's like, oh, she was always late to everything, right? But he put up with it because he loved her. But she was like the only one who was exempt in his life, even though there were still things that were irritating.
Yeah,
And so,
because he never talked to her like that. He never talked to her. So that goes to show you that he could, if he really wanted to, he could have toned it down.
yeah, and I wonder too if he would have been a gentler person. And honestly, I think it's probably likely if Sanja had never had her accident and they had had their kid, because one of the things that Uva resented about Rune was that Rune's child hated him.
Yes.
Like his kid left and went to the US and never came back and never came to visit. And Uva, and I think the quote in the book was something like, Uva could never forgive him for having a child that hated him, and Rune could never forgive Uva for seeing that. Like something, it was like something
Right.
along those lines.
Right. Well, and also too, I mean, like when he gets called grandpa,
Yeah, it's like
um,
he finally got that. Yeah,
yes, which I
yeah,
just thought was wonderful,
yeah.
I, I think that he was able to have that second chance. And that's why I'm at least glad that it ended that way, because I'm like, I mean, he didn't deserve anything that happened to him.
No, no, I don't think so too. And I mean, Zach's talking about how he throws a tantrum like a toddler, and I mean, I definitely do think in a lot of instances that he does. And I think Zach had made a comment earlier about the like he went into the Apple store, wouldn't have known like to buy an iPad that the girl asked for. He would have like bought a desktop computer had it like not harassed the attendant, to tell him like,
Right.
what is this? Is this the best one? I want her to have the best one, right? So yeah, I mean, like he did throw tantrums, and it would be very difficult again in real life to meet somebody like that and to see redeeming qualities in them.
Hmm.
But when
Yeah.
that,
So, I mean, for this, even my opinion of him changed over
yeah,
the course. I
yeah,
mean, he wasn't my favorite person, but there were
no,
moments, there were glimmers
yeah,
where I was like, oh, Uva, if you could
I
just
know,
be like this 24/7,
yeah.
or even half of that.
Yes. And that's why I think I couldn't give this book a full 5 stars, is because there were so many parts of his personality that were so unlikable, but there was enough of him that I felt like was trying to be good and wanted to help and did things at least over the course of his life that were the right thing, even if he was a royal pain in the ass about some other things. Um that I was like, talking about it, did he change over the course of the book? The reason I didn't throw in much more is because I think you said it very well. I don't think necessarily that he became a different person by the end. That like,
Mm-mm,
oh, he
yeah.
lived his life a certain way, and then like, oh, he found these people, and suddenly he's a different man. No, not at all. Like he's very much the same man, but I think he was the same man who, as you said, had like found a reason to live
Well,
again.
he's true to himself. I mean,
Yeah,
he's not going to compromise who he is for anybody. I mean, even with Sanja, he didn't 100%. He was still curmudgeon-y with her. I mean, she loved him and saw through that,
yeah,
his, whether it was a facade,
yeah,
or whatever. And he was very fortunate to be able to have that love.
yes.
Um, but I mean, that's just like his personality or whatever.
You texted me at the beginning of chapter 5 and you were like, "How could a woman ever marry him?" That was like the thing that Kat said to me. I was like, "Oh, Kat, just you wait." And I mean
I'm
he
like,
he couldn't even say I love you like Rob was saying in the quote, like she crept into his arms and said that she loved him and he nodded. Like he could not communicate a single emotional thought. Yet he was emotionally constipated. Like the most
I
emotionally
love that.
hated character I think I've ever read in my life.
Well,
But
but another
he
thing
doesn't
too, I
have.
wonder how much of it was fear-based, that the moment he would say these things, it would be taken away from him. Anytime I think he felt like he had any kind of like I don't know, like I think for him, because he knew that they were going to have a baby, and if they wouldn't have gone on that trip, they would have had, their life would have been so much different. I think he blames himself also too for not being able to protect them. He had no control over that. But if that's the way it was meant to be, it was meant to be. But he could have learned so much from his wife, because she was literally the opposite. Yes, this sucks. I lost my child,
Yep.
but look at all the children I got. I
Yes.
might not ever have been a teacher and
Yeah.
have had all these children. Look how many children came
Hmm.
back, when she had passed, that wanted to see her or whatever. That just spoke volumes,
Hmm.
that yes, she did not have her biological child, but she had lots of children.
Hmm.
And so it's like just trying to see, like, she made lemonade out of the lemons,
Yeah.
basically, and she tried to get him to see that part of it. But I think his stubbornness, and I think that's where he's limited, is that he just can't. I think it's also fear. If I do feel like I'm going to have any kind of joy, I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop,
Yeah.
kind of
100%.
thing.
And
And
he was
there's people that feel that way.
well, and he picked the route of bitterness. He picked
Yes.
the route of he cannot be optimistic because the next thing around the corner is going to be terrible, right? And it's sad. I do think that that's a sad aspect of the story, is like he could have had more joy in his life.
Well, and also too, sometimes things that do happen like that
Mhm.
bring other things into your life
Yeah.
that could be joyful. It's
Yeah. Yeah, I did like that he took a shine to Aiden though, because Aiden had nice things to say about Sandra. Like he wouldn't have given
yeah.
her 2/10 of a shit about Aiden until Aiden was like, "Hey, were you Sandra's husband?" Right? And it started talking about like, yeah, she was a great teacher, and all of a sudden Uva was like, "Okay, this kid spoke kindly of my wife. I'm going to begrudgingly help him." Right? So yeah. And there was another question you had asked, Kat, which is why does Uva inspect the neighborhood every morning? And what do you think he hopes to learn from his inspection? Um,
Well, I
yeah,
said I think it's just maintaining control. It gives
yeah,
him purpose.
yep,
He needs structure.
yep,
And also he has a purpose, a reason to fix something. So
yep,
if he sees something that's out of joint or whatever, then he is going to take the responsibility
yep,
of doing that.
yeah, 100%. And that leads into my this is the second to last question, Kat. We're moving right along. Which is Uva describes himself as a man who keeps living because he has something to be mad about. Do you think that's true? For me, I don't think it was true when Sandra was alive because she was his reason for living. I feel like he, in some desperate way, was trying to find a reason to want to stay. I don't think, like, from the way that, because this book handles suicide in such a hand wavy, like, kind of flippant, humorous way, it wasn't this, like, deep, dark depression that he had so much as like I don't have a purpose, as you said. I don't have a purpose anymore. My reason for living is gone. I spent all this time taking care of her. I don't even have a job. That was the other thing. We didn't talk about that. He was
Right.
forced into retirement. So it wasn't even just that she died. It was that he then was like, okay, well, she died. So now I got to go to work. Well, then his work was like, oh, you need to retire now.
Right.
And,
Which was another loss.
yes, and he's like, "Well, I have literally nothing now."
Hmm.
And so I almost felt like when he was doing his inspections or like hearing about things that were happening in the neighborhood, he was trying to find a reason to be around for like a
Hmm.
little
Hmm.
while longer. And so like he would be interrupted in an attempt to commit suicide because something would irritate him and he'd be like, "Oh, I got to take care of this now. Now it's another ruined day. I'll try to kill myself tomorrow." Like how many times do
Right.
you read in the book like, "Well, I guess I'll try again tomorrow." And
Good, because I
yeah,
think there was a part of him that was not ready really to give up on life. I just think he missed his wife so desperately, and
yeah,
the only way that he could be with her again, that was his solution.
yeah.
He couldn't think of being with her in a way that, like in a spiritual type of way. I mean, he did talk to her. I
Mhm.
mean, he did make her coffee in the morning. He did go
Yeah,
to her grave. Sometimes he'd bring his chair, sometimes not.
yeah. Bring her
I mean, I
flowers.
said, I think deep down, Uva keeps living because he wants to be useful.
Yeah,
And he also has a sense of deep loyalty.
yeah,
And there's a part of me that thinks that sh- Sandra would have been so disappointed in him that he checked out when he had so much more of life to live because she would not have done that.
yeah. What and did I'm not sure if you noticed during the course of the book, but his framing of like her talking in his mind changed. So like in the beginning it was, well, I she would be so angry if I left it like this, so I better go so that when I get to heaven she's not like pissed off at me and that's the first thing that, she feels is like, "Oh, you abandoned these people who needed help," right?
Right.
But then by the end of the book, he was saying, "Oh, I hope that she won't be mad at me that I can't go to her right now." So he was almost envisioning in his mind that she was telling him like, "I need you to come be with me," when really it was him. So it was like that was his projection. It's like whenever he was thinking about what she would be saying, it had something to do with actually how he was feeling, and that was the way
Hmm.
that he was processing it. Because obviously she wasn't really talking to him.
Right. Right.
And I think that that's an important thing to note is like the voice in his mind of her was like his conscience
Hmm.
in a way. And maybe that was the only way that he could process how he was feeling.
Right. Right. Possibly because he obviously didn't go to see anybody or talk to anybody about it.
Yeah, yeah, 100. Yeah, he didn't go to therapy. Oh my God, Uva, therapy? You kidding? He wouldn't pay them a nickel. And Zach says he created most of his own problems. I had a horrible upbringing. I know exactly how he thinks of what he's doing wrong because I chose the path of good, not bitterness and whining. Well, and I'm glad for you that you were able to
Yeah.
take a different path. I know a lot of people can't. A lot of people can't get past the bad things that happen to them. And you said he's too scared to rock the boat. He holds on to the things that don't work. You should have learned that when you rock the boat, the things that aren't secure enough aren't worth keeping. Yeah, Uva needed therapy like real bad. And Rob says Uva looks over the group assembled around him as if he's been kidnapped and taken to a parallel universe. Yeah, the world was just so weird and unimaginable in a way for him at the end. And Angela says, by age 7, people have developed core personality traits and emotional traits that shape their adult lives. Some can change, but others never do. It requires a great deal of work. Yeah, I've been to therapy.
Yeah, therapy, I think therapy is very
It's
beneficial.
for
And I
everyone.
think some people
Yes.
do not. I think some people think of it as a sign of weakness. I do not. I think it takes strength to go and talk to someone, and you can't think that your family is always going to understand what you're going through,
Yep.
especially if they're not feeling the same way you are
Yeah.
about it. Like, and I have a friend that I've been trying to encourage him to go to therapy. I think it would benefit him so much. I mean, he just has so much anxiety. He's very cynical. He reminds me of Uva in some ways, like just the negative and just so cynical about stuff. Even when he's writing about something happy, he always interjects some negativity in it. And I'm like, okay, well, you just, all that joyful stuff you just talked about just dissipated because you had to bring in like these two negative things or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him, I said, anxiety is a real thing. And I mean, you're anxious about things that are actually preventing you from doing things in your life, so that's where I think him too. He was limiting himself. He could have figured out a better way, or they could have helped him maybe with the control issue. But I am happy though that he had the community. And I'm going to tell you right now, if he would have died chasing that burglar, I would have been really
Oh,
mad.
oh yeah. I 100%
I
would
was
have
like,
been
if
very pissed
this is
about
how
that.
he is going to die, I am going to be really, really mad at this point.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I have to say, I did like how it ended. I liked how it wrapped up. I didn't think it was, you know, I thought it was a good natural progression for him. You
So you
know,
did feel like it was an organic ending. That leads into my last question, Kat. What were your
yeah,
emotions at
I
the end?
do think it was an organic ending. I think he, found his purpose again. I'm glad that the author did not turn him into this like happy, happy, joy, joy. Oh, everything's so great. Everything's a party. I mean, he was true to himself from the beginning to the end. He still had that tough exterior, but once he found his purpose again, once he had gone through the healing process, because
Mhm.
grief manifests differently in different people,
Yeah.
you know, and your grief for one person is very different than your grief for another person too, like the relationship.
Mhm.
That has a lot to do with it too. And I do think that this gave Uva a second chance. A second chance to kind of redeem himself.
Yeah.
Um he didn't do a stellar job at it because he still
No.
was kind of
But
mean to people,
yeah.
when they got in his face and stuff, or he thought they was stupid if they didn't do things the way he wanted. But at least he could have a relationship, you know,
He
with
got
the
to feel like
family
he had
next
a
door.
kid.
He could have grandchildren.
Yes.
He
Yeah.
appreciated the drawings that they, had. He put that on the refrigerator. It was just,
Mhm.
and then I just think he realized that he still had a lot of life to live. It wasn't his time to go. So I'm glad. I think he did a great job with that, the author. And I
Yeah.
think it was a well-written book. I mean, I'm not saying it was not.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, would you read another book by
Oh,
Fredrik Backman?
definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
One
I'm
of
thinking
the
about reading Beartown because
Your Town. Okay.
Paige, who has a booktube channel, she announced that they're reading some books for their book club. I can't remember what the name of it is. I just watched her video the other day. They're doing some Becky Chambers. Is that the author's
Becky
name,
Chambers.
Becky?
I love
Okay,
Becky Chambers.
they're doing her series, a series she wrote
Yep,
at the
that's one of
beginning
my.
of the
I love
year,
books. Yeah.
and then they're doing the Beartown trilogy
Oh, cool.
later in the
Okay.
year. So I said, maybe I'll pick up Beartown and see. Um, yeah. And I mean, y'all know how I am. I might be writing my review and be like, "Oh, maybe I'm being a little harsh with my 3.5." You never know.
That's up to you. That's
I
a
mean, it is rounding to a 4,
yeah.
so
Rob
I
says
don't
home
know.
invasion dudes. That was a huge mistake on the author's part to write that in. Yeah, well, he had to, there was the foreshadowing of him having heart issues throughout the book, so we knew it was going to come up at some point.
Yeah, but also too, that was one of the things he feared was about burglars coming in.
Yes, yeah,
And that's what he was always inspecting to make sure that burglars did not come into that. So that was
yeah,
foreshadowing also, is that
yeah,
eventually he's going to have, what is he actually going to do if he's confronted with a burglar?
right. He almost shot poor Aiden. He just like comes out holding his gun half naked because he's getting ready to kill himself with his
Right.
shotgun. That's this whole book, like all the ways he thought about dying. I'm like, man, this I there's a lot of humor in this book for well, I say more it's morbid humor. It's not like funny
Right.
haha, right? I want to be very clear about that when I say humor. It's not like tee he wants to die. No.
Right, right, right. No, no. But it's also his take on stuff. So when you're thinking about Uva, like hit, and that's one of the things I did like was that each chapter is a man called Uva and
Yeah,
whatever it
I
is.
like the chapter titles a lot. And then if it was a past or a present because it's
Right.
like a man who was Uva versus a
Yeah.
man called Uva. Yeah. Man, Zach really hates him. It's like he wasn't strong. He lashed out and projected because he was incredibly weak. I think that Uva was strong in a very specific way, which was that he wanted to protect his like little life. Like
Mhm.
that was what he cared about, and he was going to do everything. Like the association that was for the houses, like that, it directly impacted him. Sanja and her health that directly impacted him, and in that way, like, well, he basically admits in part of the book that he doesn't use the word impotent, but he feels impotent with the medical professionals because he talks about how he spent his whole life fighting the white coats and how he felt like he could never win against them. And so everything in his life, he said, it ended up basically turning it into like a white coat caused the problem, right? It was a bureaucrat
Mhm.
of some kind. It was somebody that he wrote to was like, well, we can't help you, go to this other person. And it was just like this long list of crap. And you can see that in the way that he talks about Rune, which is like, oh, well, it's going to take 2 years of bureaucratic nonsense, before they
Right.
actually get to it, because he understands the politicking and he hates the politics because he feels like things should just work the way that they're supposed to. Like people need help, you help them. People
Right.
need a ramp built, they build a ramp, right? And so in the way that he was weak, I think he was afraid of the things that he couldn't change and couldn't
Well, I
impact.
think it was the lack of control. The lack of he
Yeah,
did not
yeah,
have enough control. He did not have enough control over the situation to make things right. So, if anybody that's frustrated, you act out in a different way to do that. I mean, we've seen movies, we've watched TV shows, we've read books where people do crazy things to save a family member, a
yeah.
child, or
Mhm.
whatever because nobody else wants to help them. It's a very unfair situation. Insurance doesn't want to pay for something. I mean,
Yeah.
we ended up having that happen in real life, with was it the United Healthcare guy that wasn't he United Healthcare that
Yes.
got shot?
So
And
yeah.
that was all because something didn't get paid or whatever or approved. So it's, desperate. Sometimes people get so desperate that they do desperate things. And Uva never crosses that line to where it's
He never killed
like
anybody.
illegal or
No.
in that sense, but he is going to push the envelope because he is deeply loyal
Yeah.
to those people he cares about.
He'll be as annoying as humanly possible to get what he wants. But that's the thing, and what he does use his skills for is when it doesn't work out and like he can't get a ramp built at the school, he just builds it himself.
Right.
right? And so I think true weakness of character is like how Uva viewed Rune and why they had that falling out is like it's when you give up. Uva never gave
Hmm.
up. He didn't start giving up until Sanja died and he lost his job. That
Right.
was really, but before that, he was steadfast. He was like, I'm going to keep doing what I got to do to take care of my family. And in that way, I think that he was strong.
Hmm.
Angela says, I'm beginning Beartown in a few
Yeah.
days. Nice. I'll probably be reading everything by Fredrik Backman. I really want to read My Grandma Said to Tell You She's Sorry. Like, that's just like such a wild title for a book. I have
I
no idea
know.
what it's about, though. Carmen says, I think he did try to make amends by taking care of them with providing the money
Yes.
for his death. Yeah, leaving everything to them, leaving the sob to Adrian and stuff. Angela says, you know, he was OCD
Yes.
when he spread plastic all over the floor. Yeah, 100%. Chris says, I don't really judge people because I know it can be hard to get out of a mindset or a way of viewing life. We like to think it's easy, but most people don't really change all that much. That's so true.
Yeah.
Very, very true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rob says, Uva stands behind him with his hands in his pockets. The cat behind him looks as if he would do the same if he had pockets
I
for him.
know. I
Yeah, I
love the
did love the
cat.
descriptions of the cat. The cat
Yeah.
was really, really
And I
fun.
love that he softened to the cat.
Yeah.
And he did that because Sanja had a cat that she cared deeply about, you
Well,
know?
it had to be
So,
forced on him. I mean, I will agree with that. The cat had to be thrown at him and be like, "We can't take care of it. Everybody's allergic. Take care of the cat." But he got there. He got there. I did like the description of her cat being like the size of like a small sheep or whatever they described, just like this massive cat.
I'm a
Um,
cat person, so I'm just like, I love the cat.
yeah, I know I do. I love cats too. Zach says I almost entirely read books by women. He's definitely not somebody I want to revisit it. And Chris says, "Do you think you'll watch the original Swedish movie?" I will not. I will not.
I don't know. I mean, at first I was kind of really gung ho about watching the movies after reading the book, but then I'm like, well, if it's going to be really depressing, I'm like, I don't know if I want to watch that movie. I was depressed enough in the book. But I don't know. I mean, I might consider watching both of the movies like later on, when I've had time to be away from A Man Called Ove for a little bit.
Yeah, I for those of you who don't know, I don't typically watch movies for books that I've read. A lot of times I have to see the movie first and not know it's a book and then read the book later. So I'm not really interested in watching it, but also I just now that I know how it ends and everything, it just I'd be like, I know what's coming. I don't want to sit and
If they keep
anticipate
the
that.
ending the same, that's the
That's
thing.
true.
Will they keep the ending the same?
Yeah.
I don't know. I just and this is a book too, believe it or not, even though Uvar got on my nerves a little bit.
Mhm.
It would be a book I could see myself revisiting, maybe at a different time. It could be that, I listened to it on audiobook. I don't know if that had some impact on the voice that was given to Uva that made it even more, like sometimes when you visually or you auditorily hear something, it impacts you different than if you're just reading it with your eyeballs, because then you can come up with your own
Yeah, I just read it with
interpretation.
yeah, I just read it with my
So that's another thing too. It's like I wonder if my experience with this would have been different if I would have read it solely with my eyeballs.
I mean, yeah, maybe because haven't you talked about that before with some other
Mhm.
books? Oh, wait, was it? Did you listen to the recent Dark Tower book? Didn't you listen to part of
I
that?
could not.
You could
I
not.
could not do the audio. I tried with the gunslinger and I could not. I could not focus because it takes place in such a world. There's just too many things I had to keep looking up to see what does this mean? What is that? So I
Mhm.
read both with my eyeballs. I'm just not
Okay,
even going to attempt
yeah, no,
to.
that's fair.
Yeah. And the same thing with Stephen Graham Jones. I tried to read two books by him. I could not
Hmm.
listen to the audio because of his writing style is very unique. Now I did do My Heart is a Chainsaw, but I had already read it with my eyeballs, and the audiobook actually helped me because since I had already read it once, I was like, "Oh," and I had some epiphanies.
Hmm.
So,
Well, This has been a really good discussion. So thank you, Kat. We're going to be back again, everybody, in February. So, in our first book, I do
And
have.
don't forget, we're doing our ranking. Don't
Oh
forget.
yeah.
Don't
Oh yeah,
forget.
you're right. Absolutely. Thank you. So our first book in February is going to be Dark Sisters, which is a very, very recent release. Kat has like a super special edition because it ended up being her Owl Crate book, right? Kat, was it Owl Crate?
Yeah, so I have an extra
That yours looks so
book.
cool. It's so creepy. I love it. Oh,
Let me
oh, you
know.
got it's wow. That's really creepy.
It is very creepy. It's got beautiful end papers. Beautiful, beautiful. I'm a little disappointed that Owl Crate picked it though, because
It's too
I
dark.
joined Book of the Month Club specifically to get Dark Sisters.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and it even has a flipped. I don't like the flipped part as much as the.
Oh. See, I do think that when they do those reversible covers like that, it's really cool because not many places do. Like, there's some video games that they do that for, and the interior
Yeah.
ends up being way prettier. So
Yeah, and then that's the foil and the
mhm.
without. So I have an extra copy of Dark Sisters. So
Are you planning on doing a giveaway for that, Cat, or are
I'm
you
thinking
thinking?
about it. If anybody is going to, I might, I don't know, I might put it in Discord maybe, or I don't know. Anybody who's planning on reading it. I don't want to just give it away for the sake of giving it away. If somebody has not purchased it yet or whatever, let me know if you're planning on reading it. Now, this one, I will say, you might want to look up trigger warnings for it because this is a horror novel. It is historical fiction, but there are going to be some heavy topics in it following the three women.
Yeah.
So, you may want to check that before. I think it's going to be good, but
Yeah, Alicia was saying that cover's so cool.
yeah. But I also like the cover that came with the book also. That was really good.
Yeah,
Oh, good.
this,
Halco
this
has it on
one.
hold. I hope I don't have to wait too long for it.
Yeah, I hope you don't either, because since it's brand new, that I worry about that with new books. And that's one of the reasons I think we haven't done new releases. Is like they're just you have to pay more, and they're harder to get if you want to get them through the library. But we're trying it. This is our first one that's brand new.
Right.
Uh,
Yes, you see, Mindy did the
like,
almost thing. Right. And the
yeah,
thing about it is they tell you kind of, they don't give you any indication, but it wasn't until I saw the female rage. I was like, oh, I even told Alex, I have the
yeah.
sneaky
We
suspicion.
did. She called it. Can confirm. Cat
I
said ahead
said, I think
of
that
time.
Owl Crate is going to be Dark Sisters. Y'all, they've only had 3 boxes for the horror crate, Owl Crate, and I have gotten 2 prior to getting my box because the other one was Buffalo Hunter Hunter.
Oh wow.
So it's like
Dang. Well,
okay, well
we have
let's do
people
our
yeah,
ranking and
absolutely.
then let's do our ranking before we end up. Yeah, so anybody who wants to do horror historical fiction,
Yep, that one's
yes.
fine.
And if anybody, the book I have is the one that Alex, if anybody is planning on reading it, let me know and we'll do a drawing for it. But let's do our little ranking first. For season 1,
Yep.
we had 3 books.
Yep.
Put them in the order from least to your favorite.
Least to favorite. See, our first 3 book season was hot. It was awesome.
Stellar.
They
I
were
know.
so good. It's hard, but like my least favorite, even though it was really good, I have to say would be Devolution. And then it would go The Boys in the Valley and then Neverwhere. Neverwhere was
Okay.
number 1 for me.
Well, for me, it was Neverwhere, then Devolution,
Mhm.
and Boys in the Valley was my favorite
Okay.
out
Okay.
of them. Now, I loved all 3.
No,
I
I was
loved
gonna
all
say
3.
they're all fair, honestly. I think the rating we're gonna give for this year is a little bit like I think we're going to be more flopped on this one than like
Okay,
our
so
feeling. So
season two.
yeah,
Season
I'll let
two.
you start with your least favorite book.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
My least favorite was Chain Gang All Stars.
Okay.
What was your least favorite?
Deacon King Kong. Which I'm pretty sure is your number one, and that was my least favorite. So
My fifth place was A Man Called Ove.
mine
What was
was
your
The
fifth
Spell
place?
Shop.
Ah, my fourth place was The Spell Shop.
Okay. Mine was The Woman in the Library.
My third spot was The Woman in the Library.
Mine was Chain Gang All Stars.
My second was The Winter People.
My second was also The Winter People. Yeah,
Woo!
and we flopped, I think, on
Yeah, my number one was Deacon King Kong, and yours?
A Man Called Ove.
A
And now
Man.
I will say that I think part of it, when comparing it to the Winter People, might be a little bit of recency bias because the Winter People was the first book that we read this year, and I really liked that. So
Yeah.
it's very close for me in terms of which one would be number one, because I think that the Winter People would also be an excellent number one choice.
Oh yeah. I do too. I had a 5-star season one, which was Boys in the Valley, and my 5-star for season two was Deacon King Kong. Did you have a 5-star at all?
No, I had 0 5-stars. 0 5-star books. I had multiple 4s
Mhm.
and 1 or 2 4.5s. So I mean, like it was still a really good year.
Oh
There was
yeah.
no book that we read that I hated.
Oh no,
Deacon
no. Yeah, I
King
enjoyed
Kong
our books. I enjoyed our
Was a
books.
3, which was me saying like it's fine. It wasn't for me, but it was fine.
Mhm.
And so I'm fine with that. I feel like we'll be really lucky if next year one I can get a 5-star read, which I want one a
Oh,
5-star
I think
read.
I just based on our lineup, I think I'm gonna have a 5-star for sure.
Yeah, I'm feeling good about it. So hopefully our choices have intrigued some of y'all. And Zach says, forgot to ask, do you think the name Uva was a metaphor for an egg hard exterior but soft interior? Although rotten in my opinion. I'm not sure, but that's
Ooh.
a good point. Yeah, because does Uva mean egg? I guess that makes a lot of sense if it does. Yeah, he's like a hard boiled egg or soft boiled egg, whichever one you want to say. Zach says least favorite was this one. 10 Women in the Library Chain Gang, with the Spell Shop being my favorite.
Awesome.
Spell Shop was
Good.
definitely the most lighthearted of all of the books. So definitely
Oh
if you
yeah.
yeah, so if you
It
want
was
like
still a good time.
yeah, I know that Chain Gang All Stars was also kind of a difficult one for us to talk about too. I think that ended up being a good discussion, but there's a lot to dive into with that
Yeah.
book, that covering all of its
It
can't
was a
even
tough
begin.
topic.
Yeah,
Actually, if you think about a lot of our books for this year, we did have a lot of tough topics.
yeah.
Even in The Winter People, there
Mhm.
was some, tough topics in it because you're
Yep.
also dealing with grief and
Yep.
loss.
Mhm.
And, I think really the Spell Shop and probably The Woman in the Library were probably the most lighthearted out of.
Yeah, the woman in the library is oddly kind of lighthearted, except for
Yeah,
the pen pal. Pen
right,
pal
right.
was super creepy. Um,
But
but yeah,
I'm not, I mean, lighthearted in the sense that it wasn't like a
intense.
heavy,
Yeah,
it was
yeah,
a good time, a fun time.
yeah.
Like,
I agree. I definitely think we're going to have some of those in the coming years. So definitely want to say to everybody who's been with us this year, participated either through all of them or only some of them, thank you very much.
yes,
And it has been wonderful to hang out with you all. And regardless of what holidays you celebrate, we wish you very happy holidays and a happy new
yes,
year, because we won't see you until next year. Well, we will
yes,
probably for our sprints, but
yes. For sprint,
like
are you
this
sprinting
part,
on Friday? Are you sprinting
I am,
Friday?
yeah, I'm planning to tomorrow. Yeah, as long as
Yes,
nothing gets in the way, I should be perfectly fine. So, yes. So, thank you, everybody, and have a wonderful evening. And we'll see you in 2026. Bye.
bye.